Hello, I am Camden, and this is Camden ADHD. So, do I appear to have it all together? If so, it's smoke and mirrors, people. Let's delve into what it truly means to have ADHD, what you see, and what I'm actually feeling. Yes, I'm Camden Hainsworth. This is Camden ADHD, and the bottom line is, people, we are all just trying to hold it together. Oftentimes with ADD, there are so many thoughts and things going around our head, so many different options and dreams we're chasing and things that we have to get done that truly it's difficult for us to know which one to do when. And when I'm given an assignment, for example, for church or for community or for whatever it might be, my profession, if that task is very direct, then you better believe I'm going to get it done. But trying to keep everything else together upon that task is a whole different scenario. I love this picture that I just recently posted on my Instagram. It's my sweet, beautiful family. Thank you to my sister-in-law, Tiffany, that took these beautiful photos. The week right before this, all of my daughters had hand, foot, and mouth, causing them to have crazy blisters on their hands and feet. So they were just miserable, out for the count for a good week and a half. And then we thought, oh, this would be a great time to go take pictures. Pretty much, I knew the snow was coming. I knew it was getting colder. I was going to be out of town for the next 2 weekends. And so he said, let's just do this. So it looks beautiful. The photo is just adorable. But what you don't see is what went on behind the scenes, right? My oldest daughter has severe ADHD, super hyperactive. And so with that, she also has the highs and the lows of her emotions. My youngest daughter was freezing cold and being really introverted. And so she didn't want to smile by herself. And my second daughter, Evan, her hands and feet it was like her first day back to school, and people had been mentioning her hands and feet and how they looked spotted, and she was very self-conscious of it. So she didn't want to take any photos holding hands or doing anything that would show her hands. So you can imagine trying to take pictures with this really diverse group of little girls, ages 6, 5, and 3. Upon everything else, it was chaos. And that's just my family. My incredible sister-in-law, she brought her 2 babies and my mother-in-law with her. And her youngest baby threw up all over himself. He didn't have any clothes. Milo was being a trooper, her oldest. It was just quite the adventure. But this picture looks beautiful, and everyone's smiling and pretty much looking at the camera and looks just sweet as can be. And that is totally, honestly, what it's like to live with ADHD, to live with, this facade of trying to keep it all together for the people that are around you, but really inside, it's just utter chaos that you're trying to navigate. When I was in college, I was termed the ripe banana. I think they were trying to be nice, and it was a compliment, meaning that I kind of had all my stuff together, that while a lot of the other freshmen that had just come to school or whatever were just trying to figure out life, it appeared on the outside that I had it together. I was ready to get married, ready to start the family, whatever it might be. That actually happens quite often in my religion and the university that I attended. But the bottom line is, as I look back, I did not. I wasn't dysfunctional by any means, but I can see how ADD was really impacting my life and causing a lot of hardship in my heart and trying to figure out who I was, and a lot of frustration. And I had a lot of learning to do. I had a lot of growing to do, as we all did. But it was hard, you guys. It was really, really hard. I gave myself early classes because I thought I believed strongly in waking up early for the day and getting going on the day. And I was early to class. I was, at the very least, always on time. I did my homework every day. I was financially aware, didn't spend more money than I needed to. I set bedtime for 1 a.m. And believe you me, that now sounds really late, but back then it was really early. My friends were staying up far later than 1 o'clock in the morning. I was a journal keeper. I kept a journal every night. I had my nightly devotions and in my scriptures, and I was just trying to do everything that I thought that I should. In terms of academics, I remember going in time and time again for my English teacher my freshman year, going over my papers, over my work, editing, re-editing, bringing it back, because I wanted to get things just right. And it was so frustrating. I'm just going to be really, really honest. So frustrating to have all of these other friends. Excuse me, I have a little tickle in my throat. I had so many other friends who were in the same classes as me, who would be out with friends or, going on adventures and parties while I was home. And they would come home and they'd pull an all-nighter, they'd write the paper, and they would surpass my grade by a ton. Like I get a, C plus and they get an A minus. It was so frustrating, having put so much, effort into my work only to come up short every time. This time I was also, I was pre-dental, and so I had a lot of science classes, and it was just, I could not remember. I couldn't remember the body parts. I couldn't remember the systems. I loved it. I could stay in those lectures and learn about the human body for forever. The general ideas I really caught on to. They certainly helped me in my future profession as a 6th grade teacher. I really could. I had very good posture teaching science because I understood the general idea of the human body and what it did, but I couldn't remember the direct terms. I had trouble spelling, how things were spelled when I took anatomy lab, and so I get marked off for that. Once again, it was so crazy how many of my, how many other students that were in my classes wouldn't attend class, and I didn't stand up for myself very much back then, and they would copy my homework, they'd copy my assignments, they'd copy my notes, and then they would just go into the testing center and take the test and come out with incredible grades. And I put so much time into studying and memorizing and hours and hours and hours and extra labs and all of this. And as soon as I got into that testing center, my mind just blanked. And more than that, it just never was solidified in the first place. My brain did not work in that capacity, in that fashion at all. And so even though I put so much time into these classes, I never ended up on top. And in fact, I think I ended up failing anatomy 3 times. I had persistence. I learned grit. I learned how to work through things and get through things. And thankfully, there were other aspects of my life that allowed me to have really good self-confidence. This is when I discovered that I loved writing music, playing the guitar. And so I at least could pour myself into that aspect and not feel like a complete dummy. But it got embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. And as we talked about in the last podcast, embarrassment is not a very good thing for people to have in my situation. But I didn't have it all together. I didn't. While I was trying to get to class and put in extra time and do my part, it didn't pan out. Didn't pan out until I found what I was truly meant to do, and that was teaching. I started school in 2001, and I didn't actually declare my major of being elementary education until, let me think, 2005, 2006. It could have even been 2007. No, that's when I got married. It must have been 2006. So we're talking a good 4 or 5 years, between when I came to college, declared my major as dental, then dental hygiene, then I came back and changed it to biology. I came back from serving a mission for my church, changed it to biology, and then from biology to elementary education. And at that point, I had gone to a keynote speaker, and she talked about, I don't know why so many of you guys feel like you have to come up with something new. God has given you talents. You need to use those talents, and that needs to be your emphasis and your focus. And so I realized that creativity was one of those big things. And man, did things start to change for my ADHD brain, now looking back, once I got into education. In an elementary school class, you are asked to think of 1,000 things all at once. And, you're tuned in to the kid in the corner who's having a tantrum. You're tuned into the kid in the front row who's on the autism spectrum, who needs extra help. You're tuned into your high achiever who needs to be pushed on a higher level. You're tuned into your fast finishers. You're tuned into other behavioral issues. Meanwhile, you know that you have to get this whole lesson done in the next 10 minutes. And also they need to be transitioned to stand up and walk quietly through the halls to lunch. There's so many things that you're constantly juggling in your mind, especially in elementary school, that made me just flourish in that profession. I loved it so much. And so the other thing is I could use my creativity. I could use my creative outlet, especially in times that were like kind of stressful or hard. I would think to myself, okay, how can I make this more fun, not only for me, but for my students? And so I could bring in music, I could bring in dance, I could bring in art, I could bring in lyrics, writing a song to help them understand information. And all these things also that I had experienced in college now were helping me to help other people in their own struggles. And it was amazing how many kids I had that actually did have attention deficit or hyperactivity or Asperger's or had trauma in their life or were English language learners. There was a lot of things. And all of this creativity and all of this juggling in my mind was for something and could be used in the right way. And while dentistry pays a lot more, I wonder if I would have not been completely fulfilled in the way that I am. And being an entrepreneur also, I think, is very much like that. You're forced to use creativity. You're forced to use your mind. You're forced to use all of those systems to move you forward. And so I'm really hopeful that things will continue to go well. And as I'm still navigating and starting to understand what it means to have an ADHD brain, I can know how to navigate that even better. So if it looks like we have it all together, then you're right. It looks like we do. But the bottom line is you never know what someone else is going through. And people, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm a very people-y person. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy being in charge of events and community. And so I'm going to do everything I can to appear like I've got it going on. As I've grown up, I've learned how to delegate responsibilities. I've learned how to care less about perfection and more about the general whole, especially when it's volunteer opportunities. The greater whole of doing our best work, but also including everyone in their growth in that. So letting go of some of those expectations. And this is different when it's my own business, but especially in church and things like that, have certainly helped me to, even among my struggles, be able to find success and find that you don't have to have it all together for something to be good. If you found any value in this podcast today, will you please subscribe? I'd love to get to know you more. I'm going to be putting out many of these podcasts as I'm starting to navigate ADHD, starting to look back on my life and starting to see my current life, to add some insights as to what it is like to live with this day in and day out, and the struggle and the success and the happiness and everything that goes along with it. Thank you so much for being with me. I am Camden. This is Camden ADHD. And until next time, have a great life.